Absolutely have to have dark in order to have light. Gotta have dark. Gotta have opposites, dark and light and dark, continually in painting. If you have light on light, you have nothing. If you have dark on dark, you basically have nothing. There we are. It's like in life. You gotta have a little sadness once in a while so you know when the good times come. I'm waiting on the good times now.
Welcome to the Trashcats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're going to talk about the one, the only, the patron saint of the arts, Bob Ross, a.k.a. Bad Boy Bobby, a.k.a. Heartbreak Bobby, a.k.a. Master Sergeant Robert Norman Ross.
Oh, fuck, man. I was actually looking up his nicknames when we were researching, and what was it? Bad Boy Bobby something came up. I was like, that's so good.
That's fucking good. I thought you just kind of freehanded that one. I've been calling him Bobby Rosé.
Dude, that's awesome. What about that quote, man? That's so fucking good.
It's one of the realest ones to ever do it. It was a beautiful sentiment in a dark time in his life.
To record that right after his wife passed, and the good times are coming.
It was after his wife passed. I think it was after he just learned he had cancer, too.
Yeah.
Was at least the way they framed it there.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
You watched it?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, yeah.
Yeah, I watched the documentary we're going to talk about.
Oh, fuck. How was your week, man?
Oh, my week's been all right. It's been very productive. Shifts are getting lower at work because of the season, so I've been able to take some time to get some painting done and get some shit done on that end. So it's been a good one, though.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of not a lot of shit going on, which is good. You know, sometimes a quiet week of just some progress is nice.
Yes, dude, that's what I'm craving right now. Bad.
Yeah, how's your second week at work been?
It's been good. It's going well. It's just lots of other stuff going on too, and haven't normally I feel like I'm this busy, but I'm choosing to do things, and it's just busier than I'm used to.
Word.
A little stressful, but it's going well.
Good.
Yeah. All gravy.
Now I know you got some honorable mentions for us.
Oh, yes. All right, this first one is a linkety-link. I thought this was really cool. Granted, very cheesy, but it's a series of vending machines by this project called the Vendera in Portland. So we got some leftist shit. That Alex Jones video.
Oh Jesus Christ.
What a piece of shit. So across Portland, there are 18 different glowing hand-painted vending machines, and they don't have snacks. The whole deal with it is it's just filled with local artists' work. So they partner with local artists in the area of the vending machine, and it can be like jewelry, little paintings, drawings, and it allows local artists to put their art for sale.
It's really dope.
It's so cool. It's such a good idea. Like, I really don't know enough about the company. Like, there could be all kinds of dumb shit involved, but just the concept of it alone is cool. Just to make more art more accessible like that.
Yeah, it definitely makes buying locally made, artist products a lot more fun.
Yeah.
It's a really cool concept.
Yeah, you could geocache to your your local community art vending machine and then pay with Bitcoin.
Yeah, boy.
But I thought that was pretty cool. All right, this second one. All right, it's not like the best, but I really like its feel. This is a painting by Herman Herzog titled "A Mining Town by Moonlight" from 1869. And
we've talked about Herman Herzog on the podcast before, right?
Yeah, because I think he does a lot of the moon stuff. I really like the swampy feel. And I just really like this one. I mean, it's a beautiful landscape, very dreary, depressive. I love how crunchy the texture is when they get old like that. But what I really liked about this piece is I felt like this is what a more like metal version of Bob Ross would be like.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that.
Like, I would love to. I wish he had a season of like gothic landscapes.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Wouldn't that be dope?
The joy of painting.
Dying. The joy of dying with Bob Ross.
Jesus Christ.
But it's a beautiful painting. He's got lots of cool stuff.
Again, he's got this motif with these the little cabins with the light on, the little wooden building with the warm light coming inside with this, like you said, a very dreary landscape.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have described a painting of a small mining town near a waterfall that I would have any interest in, right? By subject matter. But it's fucking gorgeous. And I think he's the one that really got me so heavily interested in landscape stuff.
I can see that.
Last one, or second last one. This is an illustration by Randy Ortiz. We have his Instagram, which we'll share. This piece is titled The Dance, and it kind of plays off The Mining Town by Moonlight, because I feel like this is what Bob Ross would look like if he went goth metal and then went like goth metal surrealism. Like,
all right, yeah. If he took some extra steps,
it's really nothing
in
like
his
Bob
later
Ross.
in his later days.
But I just wish like we would have seen other dimensions of him. But I really like this piece. It's just so I don't know, so heavy.
It is, and it's brutal, and I like it.
Yeah, I like pieces like this. It's like feels like the whole page is covered, and it's just like hands reaching out of a forest. But it feels like, I don't know. I like when you look at pieces like that, especially like the first time I saw it, it didn't have the white border, and I liked it a lot better that way. And it just feels like, I don't know, when it's that muddy, I just really like, I don't know, the feeling of it more than I like the piece in a way.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. All right. So then the last honorable mention we're gonna play at the end of the episode. This is the song that we wanted to play on our free will episode, but we just didn't hear back in time. But the guy who made the song is a DJ by the name of Stenchman, and this song is titled "Free Will," and it's so fucking beautiful. It's so good. It samples lines from the movie Waking Life about the nature of free will, set to this beautiful electronic beat. And I had messaged the dude because I had listened to this song so many times, like when I was like in my car doing dumb shit, and it just like stayed on a burnt CD in my car for years and years. And I messaged the creator Stenchman like 2 weeks ago, and he got back to me this week and was like, dude, play it. That's awesome. I was like, that's so fucking cool. Like,
Yeah. Hella dope.
Yeah, so cool. So we're excited to play that at the end. But that wraps it up with the nonsense. Let's get to the meat and potatoes.
Well, yeah, let's talk about our boy Bobby Rose.
Bobby Rose.
Young Bob Ross in the building.
Yeah, buddy.
So Ross was born in Daytona Beach to a Jack and Ollie Ross. He was raised in Orlando. He also had a half-brother named Jim, who we mentioned in passing on the show.
Yes.
As an adolescent, Ross cared for injured animals, including armadillos, snakes, alligators, and squirrels, one of which was later featured in several episodes of his television show, The Pocket Squirrel.
Yes.
Ross dropped out of high school in the 9th grade. While working as a carpenter with his father, he lost part of his left index finger, which did not affect his ability to later hold a palette while painting.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, I never knew that either.
That's so cool.
In 1961, 18-year-old Ross enlisted in the United States Air Force and was put into service as a medical records technician. He rose to the rank of Master Sergeant and served as the first sergeant of the clinic in Alaska, where he first saw the snow and the mountains that later appeared in his the recurring themes of his paintings. He developed his quick painting technique during brief daily work breaks. He held military positions that required him to act really tough and mean. He said, he was quoted as the guy who makes you scrub the latrine, the guy who makes you make your bed, the guy who screams at you for being late to work. And Ross decided he would not raise his voice when he left the military.
Wow. That's such a dramatic change.
Can you picture Bob Ross yelling at you?
No, the documentary.
It would be terrifying at this point.
That really. It's just a skeleton.
Well, that too. But I thought, like this, the calmest possible demeanor. He's always shown with like being so chill. But like, you make that guy fucking mad. Oh shit, you fucked up.
Yeah, that's funny. So during his 20-year Air Force career, Ross developed an interest in painting after attending an art class at the Anchorage USO Club. He found himself frequently at odds with many of his painting instructors who were more interested in abstract painting. Bob said, "They'd tell you what makes a tree, but they wouldn't tell you how to paint a tree."
And I think that's really indicative of a lot of art school stuff. I mean, we see it with Monet too. You go in and they tell you how to do this shit, and it's like, okay, but I don't want to do it like this. Like, this is how other people do it. I want to do something
My own
different.
way.
Yeah, I have my own thing that I want to do, and and it's like, okay, well, so if you can't find it there, you have to find it somewhere else. So,
and I also really appreciate that Bob also thought abstract art was garbage.
yeah, that is important. Bob knew what was up.
Fuck yeah.
So Bob was working as a part-time bartender when he discovered a TV show called The Magic of Oil Painting, hosted by German painter Bill Alexander. Alexander used a 16th century painting style called alla prima, which is Italian for first attempt, which is widely known as wet on wet. That allows him to create a painting within 30 minutes. The technique used a limited selection of tools and colors that didn't require a large investment in expensive equipment. Combining the wet painting method with the use of large 1 and 2 inch brushes, as well as painting knives, allowed the painter to quickly complete a landscape scene. Bob studied and mastered the technique. He began painting and then successfully selling Alaskan landscapes that he would paint on novelty gold mining pans. Eventually, Ross's income from sales surpassed his military salary, and he retired from the Air Force in 1981 as a master sergeant.
God, it's still tripping me out. He was in the military.
Yeah, I think for sure we can now say that he is ranked up to Master Chief of painting.
Dude, I could see him being like a stone cold killer. And then he'd paint a beautiful master painting of the spot he murdered you.
just like with the blood, just in using the knife like a palette knife.
Oh, fuck. The origins of the TV show The Joy of Painting are unclear. It was filmed at the studio of the PBS station WIBP PB in Munis, Indiana.
Actually,
India.
That's actually Muncie, but okay. Munis. I love it.
I didn't wear my glasses.
Leave it in.
Influenced by the TV painters before him, Bob learned out how to quickly paint for a 30-minute TV platform from his mentor, William Bill Alexander. This dude is cool as fuck.
Yeah, he was.
So it was Alexander who taught Ross how to complete a full landscape in 30 minutes. It was Alexander who was the first to host a live painting show titled The Magic of Oil Painting on PBS. It was even Alexander who coined the catchphrase, "Happy Little Trees," which is now largely attributed to Bob Ross.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that he, I thought for sure the Happy Little Trees was definitely a Ross thing.
Right.
And I definitely have watched some Bill Alexander with my aunt growing up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she would have that on. She was an avid painter. So we'd go over her house and she'd be watching that in the morning.
That's awesome.
and
He was new to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's new to a lot of people because Bob kind of
You
took that
overshadowed him.
scene over, yeah.
Yeah.
So a quick aside about Billiam here. Alexander was born in East Prussia, which is present-day Germany, in 1915 as World War I spread
That's
across
not
Europe.
good.
That's a bad time. During his youth, he was surrounded by a landscape of dead cows and machine guns, barred and lying around, and skeletons of soldiers half buried with the boots sticking out of the ground. And he remembered in his autobiography, it was in this environment that he sought refuge in nature and later painting. Even in his darkest moments, he noticed the skylark for its morning song, he said.
Dude, how like, first of all, I was right. It was all bad.
It was all bad.
But dude, how do these people, like, you can see where Bob, like, aside from painting, learned a lot about his attitude from his mentor. And it's like, I don't know how you feel. I don't know. Like, I feel like I can notice the beautiful things in dark times, but it's hard to be that optimistic still, or to be that positive when shit's like that fucking, I don't know, full of carnage.
Yeah. So Alexander went on to have a 10-year run with the magic of oil painting. But as his one-time apprentice, Bob Ross began to master the technique in his own distinctive style. PBS thought it was time for a new face for the show, and Bob was much more hip, and the audience found his voice and approach to painting soothing and mesmerizing. So Alexander graciously passed on his show to Bob, who publicly acknowledged that Alexander taught him the technique. But as the years passed, Alexander felt bitter and later on went on to say to the Times, New York Times, I said the Times, you know. You know how we all know that the New York Times would just be the Times? His quote was, "I trained him and he is copying me. What bothers me is not just that he betrayed me, but that he thinks he can do it better."
Oof. That's brutal.
It is brutal.
I mean,
it's hard to say because it's not that it's better, it's different. I mean,
I don't know his work well enough to say if Bob is for sure better.
It's Bob Ross's work.
Gotcha.
The paintings are the same.
Yeah.
I think the charisma that Bob Ross has it's not that William Alexander had less charisma. It was just very different. He was super high energy. And I think the vibe of Bob Ross was just better and easier to take in.
Yeah, and definitely not saying it's a good reason, but even for the simple fact that he had a foreign accent.
True.
To an American audience, like at that time.
Yeah.
It might be kind of fucked up, but that alone. And I also wanted to mention with the wet on wet techniques, it's so cool how they can do all this like almost ad-libbing, and like all of a sudden you can do a fat stroke of paint and add a tree at the last second.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
His the producers on his show would always be like, all right, the painting's almost done, because they'd be, you know, needing it to be done in 30 minutes. And at the last second, Bob, just to make him anxious, would add these big trees and do these different
It was fucking great.
Yeah, and how you can do the stuff with the palette knife for like the flicking of the brush. It's such a cool alternative way to use oil like that.
Yeah.
It also really helped. Ross would paint 3 versions of almost every painting featured on the show. Mm-hmm. So the first was painted prior to taping and sat on an easel off camera during the filming, where Ross would use it as a reference to create a second copy, which viewers actually watched him paint. After filming the episode, he painted a more detailed version for the inclusion in his instructional books. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm doing it quick, I'm doing it right, but I can do it better still. The versions were each marked on the side or back of the canvas, Kowalski for the initial version, TV for the version painted during the TV show, and book for the book version. And we'll get into the Kowalskis here in a bit.
Yeah. So Ross painted an estimated 30,000 paintings during his lifetime.
God damn.
Just fucking a bonkers number that doesn't make sense.
That's L. Ron Hubbard numbers,
right?
For writing bullshit, but
the quality is not equal, but
right.
Despite the unusually high supply of original paintings, Bob Ross original paintings are scarce on the art market, with sale prices of the paintings averaging in the thousands of dollars and frequently topping $10,000. The major auction houses have never sold any of Ross's paintings, and Bob Ross Inc. continues to own many of the ones he painted for Joy of Painting, as Ross himself was opposed to having his work turned into financial instruments. In contrast to the more traditionally famous artists, Ross's work, described by an art appraisal service as a cross between fine art and entertainment memorabilia, is most highly sought after by common fans of the Joy of Painting, as opposed to wealthy collectors. The artwork circulating around collectors is largely from Ross's work from before he launched the television show.
That's very interesting.
It is.
I almost think 10K is a little cheap, but he made so many too.
I was told when I was young that PBS donated a lot of his paintings. That obviously doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah. Now what? This is a hot take. What did you think of like his both style and quality of paintings before like I grew to appreciate him with age. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking it was cool to see this on TV as a kid, but I also remember thinking like this shit's really fucking lame or boring.
Oh, I always liked Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a time in my life where I was like, this shit's fake. He's not really cranking that shit out like that. I couldn't decide how because I was a fucking kid and I was an idiot. But that was my only ever complaint about Bob Ross that I, had to pull back because obviously he is definitely creating those paintings and I love the quality of the paintings. I'm not really even big on landscapes, but I'd really like Bob Ross landscapes.
For me, it's like 50-50. Like half of them I do genuinely like, and the other half kind of feel like a teensy bit like fantasy wall art.
Yeah.
Or
some of the ones that aren't like mountain and like forest scenes. Like there's the one in particular I'm thinking of that's like a island and like an ocean or something. And it's like, I don't like this shit. This isn't, the vibe I want.
Yeah. But you did, I mean, it doesn't suck. It's a weird conversation when an artist you really, really like, not Bob Ross, just a random artist, makes a prolific amount of work, and then occasionally it's like they're going to put out garbage stuff. But it is
right.
To be successful as an artist in a commercial sense, it is a numbers game to an extent. You have to balance the quality and quantity kind of deal. Mm-hmm. That's some artists struggle with that a lot more than others. It's very tricky. So Bob was a cigarette smoker for most of his adult life, and he I guess he had said at some point he expected to die young, and he suffered from several health problems over the course of his life. He died at the age of 52 on July 4th, 1995, in Orlando, Florida, due to complications from lymphoma. The footage of his funeral is wild. It's like the Beatles are playing a show. Like people were going crazy.
Yeah. Not his funeral, but after his death.
Yeah, you're right. Do we want to touch on the conspiracy?
Yeah, man. Talk about it. Bring it up. You already stuck the shovel in it.
All right.
Dig it up, man. The
documentary hinted at there is no proof and there will be no proof of the spirits you use for oil painting. That shit's toxic, and he had a habit of venting his anger by when he dipped his brush in the oil, he'd shake it off by slamming it between the legs of his easel, like whop, 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 whop. And it would spray like a mist throughout the room. And they think it's possible years of the old toxic oil and his amount of time breathing that in, that it's possible that, the art supplies led to his lymphoma.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting theory. It's not, I don't think it's far from, a possibility.
See, as soon as the documentary said that, the first thing I said to Sarah was like, that is very interesting if that is possible.
Yeah.
If that, like, I don't know. I feel like they should have given some more background to if that is even a thing that could be relevant, or else they shouldn't have said it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but we're going to get more into this documentary. We've been referring to this new Netflix documentary on Bob Ross. Ross kept his diagnosis a secret from the general public. His lymphoma was not known outside of his circle of family and friends until after his death, and it was a big surprise to people.
Yeah, even people that were like technically within his, maybe not his closest personal family and friends, but like people that were close to him didn't know about it until they read about it in the paper.
Like people that worked on the sets and stuff. And then when they look back at this footage, you see like the last couple seasons, he's becoming more gaunt and slowly getting sick. And that was a concern for the producers of the show, that they didn't want him to, not look like himself, but he really did well at keeping it a secret to some extent.
Yeah. So after his death, newfound interest in Ross occurred in 2015 as part of a launch of Twitch Creative. Twitch hosted a 9-day marathon of Joy of Painting beginning on October 29th to commemorate what would have been Ross's 73rd birthday. Twitch reported that 5.6 million viewers watched the marathon and, due to its popularity, created a weekly rebroadcast of one season of The Joy of Painting each Monday. A portion of the advertising revenue was promised to charities, including St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital.
Damn. At the same time Netflix released this new doc, Hulu put seasons 20 or 21 through 25 up too. So I've been watching some of that lately.
Dude, I got a whole Bob Ross channel on my Samsung TV.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just included with the TV.
That's rad. In June 2016, Ross's series Beauty is Everywhere was added to the Netflix lineup. The 30-minute episodes are taken from seasons 20, 21, and 22 of the Joy of Painting series. The newly found interest surprised the Kowalskis. Should we mention who they are now?
No, we'll get into them.
Okay. Since they were managing Ross's image and the Joy of Painting episodes, they also created a YouTube channel for Ross, which gained more than 1 million subscribers within a year. Dude, that is crazy for an artist after their death to both increase in value and continue to capture the imagination of both people who look at it nostalgically and young painters. It's so cool.
There was, I had mentioned in a previous episode, the Tribals channel on Instagram, on YouTube.
Yeah.
They showed them Bob Ross video, and then the one week, and then the next week they actually brought in like a bunch of paint and stuff and had them like make a Bob Ross painting along with it. And a couple of them were really into it. And they, realized like, wow, I just found like a new passion in art that I, didn't have before. And, like I want to paint every day now. Like this is what I want to do.
It's the joy of painting, the magic of Bob Ross.
It's, it goes across any kind of international border, art. It works that way. The renewed interest in Ross also led to questions of where his paintings were located, given that more than 1,000 works were created for the Joy of Painting. In an investigative report by the New York Times, the Kowalskis affirmed that they still held all of them, though without the proper care generally needed to store art. Prompted by numerous letters and fans from Ross, the Smithsonian Smithsonian and American Art Museum contacted the Kowalskis and offered to take a selection of Ross's paintings, along with other items from the show, to place on exhibit the rapper, to place on exhibit at a museum.
Dude, it's expensive and so logistically difficult to store paintings like that.
Right.
Especially in bulk. Man, my grandpa was an art collector, and my mom had to deal with all this art. Some of it was kind of valuable, and some of it wasn't at all. And you have to like go through all these records. You got to be in the right conditions in the right rooms. It's just so much. When I can't imagine how much time, effort, and money would go into properly if they were to have storing 30,000 paintings. I mean, that's like climate-controlled warehouse with staff and shit. It's wild.
Yeah. Absolutely obnoxious.
Yeah. In 2020, the makers of Magic the Gathering, which I'm very familiar with because my girlfriend is a nerd, they announced a limited release of Bob Ross paintings that adapted the artwork with pictures of him, and they're really fun. I've seen a couple of them in real life, and they're really goofy.
Just some little some environment features. It's important.
Yeah, and then you showed me yesterday that CGI Mountain Dew commercial.
Yeah, that just came out too. It's
wild.
Also
stuff.
Fucking wild as hell.
It's like the Tupac holographic concerts kind of shit. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
They like made him way more jacked than he was in real life.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't they?
Dude, it's so weird though that you can sell, like, whether it's Tupac or Bob Ross, to sell someone's likeness like that. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on some aspects of that. So,
of course, I feel like as long as the right people are getting money for it, that's okay. But so this is where we can introduce the Kowalskis and who they are for anyone who hasn't seen the documentary yet.
Yeah, this is where the controversy comes into play on if the money's going to the right people.
Right. So for a while, Bob Ross was working with Bill Alexander as a painting instructor, teaching in his style. The Kowalskis met him at a painting class, and they had the funding to, try to go into business with him. And they were the ones that approached and said, like, we should be doing this separately. We should be, he should have his own classes and he should do this kind of stuff. So,
right. And keep in mind, the Kowalskis are a married couple. Yeah. And at the time, Bob Ross was also married.
Yes.
Yeah.
They, were business partners throughout the entire Joy of Painting series, and they helped, they organized the classes, the painting classes, and all of the merchandising, all of the paint and the tools and instructional booklets and stuff. They handled all of that and the finances and stuff like that.
Yeah, to some extent. And I believe Bob even said it himself, to some extent, they really are what made his career possible or prosperous. Like he had the talent, but they needed, he needed someone to take him to that next level with financial investment. And they had what seemed to be a really good working relationship, but there were signs of things early on that were a little sketchy, such as the Kowalskis were always recording phone calls. And didn't Bob end up taking that on later too? Or was it just them?
I think it was just them.
Okay. That's a shady thing. If you find out your business partner is recording your phone calls for legal reasons, it's a weird sign.
Yeah. It's definitely some kind of a red flag.
Yeah. Even if you could agree to it ahead of time, I don't think it's bad they're recorded, but if one party is unknowingly recording the other party, that's a red flag.
Yeah, and it's like if you're going to record it, I also probably now need to record it. Yeah, because you can't be the only one with access to this. A
real quick aside, what do you think of the different states having different private recording laws. The one party or two party recording?
How do you mean?
It's like half of states you can record someone without them knowing it, like on the phone, and then like the other half of states you have to have the person's consent. It's just state to state how that works.
It's
Privacy.
complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously privacy is important. I feel like for my own protection, I have wanted to record phone calls before that I've had with
Work stuff.
Yeah, that people I thought were either threatening or were being, trying to scam me or us out of money or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think surveillance of any kind is pretty kind of fucked, but when it comes to like a personal defense thing, it's.
And I don't know the laws well enough, but I think it should always be legal to record it, but depending on if it's released publicly or what it's used for.
Yeah, public release is weird. And that's the other thing is like using it in like a court of law. Like you hear stories all the time about like they'll say something or they'll bring attention to the court to something, and then afterward, knowing full well that they can't use this as evidence or something, and then it's like, oh, well, the jurors just don't think about that. Pretend that didn't happen. And it's like
from the poison tree bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's, at the same time, if you'd have to like break a law to expose someone, who was in the wrong, it gets tricky. I don't know.
So how old were you when you first? Do you think you were when you first saw Bob Ross?
Dude, I don't know. I think of Bob Ross like the Tooth Fairy.
That's fair.
I feel like he was like a
He's
mythical.
always been there.
Yeah, he was
He
a
always
mythical
will be.
creature that always existed, and I don't know when you started believing in him, but like unlike the Tooth Fairy or Santa, I never stopped believing in Bob.
Right.
I may have not shown him the respect he deserved for a number of years, but I never stopped believing in Bob. Mm-hmm. Bobby Rose. What about you? He's part of your childhood.
Yeah, I definitely remember the painting videos when I would go over to my aunt's house. I think that was number one. Mm-hmm. And I think as I got older and started to draw more and more and more, more of my family was like, oh, you should watch Bob Ross. You should do this. And I was never into painting, so I would just watch it like, wow, that's really wild and crazy.
Yeah.
I remember in particular it was probably like it was like 8th grade, I think, when I first went into painting with the twins at SCPA, and they expressed a pure hatred for Bob Ross.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they really hated Bob Ross. They didn't even like talking about it. They hated him.
That's so weird.
Yeah, and it was like, at the time I was like, oh, maybe I think that's what fueled like me thinking like, oh, maybe it's, some fake bullshit, that he's doing. And it's like, no, he's talented and he's doing something that's fun and it's not a big deal. They're just jealous.
Yeah, dude.
That he's making this look easy and he's making success on it. And like, yeah, maybe it's not like the most original shit that he's making. Maybe it's, some kind of cookie cutter landscape kind of shit, but he's
introducing art in a new way to so many new people. Like,
yeah,
I don't get how as an art teacher you could be like, fuck this dude, this isn't real fine art. Like, get the fuck out of here.
I mean, people think fucking, who is it, Norman Rockwell? Is it Norman Rockwell?
I don't like
that
Rockwell.
he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And, his stuff is all cookie cutter fucking Hallmark card bullshit.
It's Americana at its finest.
I think Bob Ross paintings are way better and deserve more respect.
Way better. Now, This is a weird thing I have. If you put like both the Mining Town painting by Herzog we looked at, or like if you took most of Bob Ross's paintings, I know it actually came up with that digital artist we looked at, Machado or whatever, Machado. If you would have put a figure, like a couple people in all of his landscape, all of Bob's landscapes, it could have ruined so many of them.
Yeah, agreed.
There's something sacred about a pristine spot in nature that isn't like tainted by like some human fucking fishing or climbing a stupid mountain or some shit.
Parasites.
Oh my god, dude, we're a virus to the earth. It's the worst though when like every once in a while you can bend that rule and get like a person for scale or something where it actually adds something.
Yeah.
But 99.9% of the time it just destroys a beautiful place.
So I was going to actually mention earlier with the Ortiz painting that that with the dance where it's just the hands and the feet.
It's graphite,
just
actually.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just the illusion of human appendages, and that's different. It's so different on that scale because there's no face, there's no body to it. It's not a person per se. It's the illusion of.
Yeah, it's like a mutilated like shape of humanity without like just like a normal person to ruin it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's different.
Yeah. People in art sucks all the time, no matter what.
Unless it's like
hard stance.
Hard stance. I love paintings with subjects to them, but it has to be the right thing. Like most portraits are boring as fuck, but it has to be the right person. But with landscapes, it just shouldn't have people in it most of the time.
Yeah, agreed. So let's talk about the documentary.
Yes.
It's the reason for the season. Netflix has bugged our note-taking sessions, and they are honed in on what we're going to be talking about. And they're like, oh, these boys need some competition. Or Netflix is like, these boys need a boost in their SEO. So let's go ahead and post these like right around the time. So, here's a simulation theory, here's a art heist thing.
Dude, our podcast has got a little simulation theory. Oh, fuck.
So this is, the next part we're going to be talking about is mostly from an article from Michelle Robertson at SF Gate. I assume it's San Francisco Gate.
Sure.
It's like it's like Watergate, but San Francisco.
The old SF Gate.
But it was a really good article, and I trimmed a little bit for some repetitiveness that we talked about earlier, but it's really, really well put. So Bob Ross is a signifier of many things. He symbolizes a life committed to artistic creation and the joy of painting, which served as the title of his iconic TV show. But he also signifies something darker and frightening, the commodification of one's own image into the name of profit and greed. And to many in the current generation who never watched his show, Ross has become a mere meme. A new documentary on Netflix, Bob Ross, Happy Accidents, Betrayal, and Greed, explores the life of Bob Ross and his fandom, as well as the aspects of his career that were invisible to the camera.
Yeah, we're going to get into the controversy a little bit. The man behind the myth came into shaky focus in this well-made documentary, and there's some criticisms over that later. For one, the hair was permed.
Yeah.
That's a funny way to start the article. In those pictures of him when he was younger, he looked so different.
Yeah.
And he called getting his hair permed once a month tightening the coils.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Oh, man.
Get my coils tightened.
Yeah. He was a flirt and sometimes a womanizer. He'd catch fish only to release them back into the water. And he loved fast cars. That was fun to watch him and his car interest.
Yeah.
Apparently he'd take like new friends or people he had known, whatever, into like a new sports car he had just got, and he'd like drive. They said it was mostly safe, but pretty recklessly fast.
Yeah. But it was for the thrills. He wasn't trying to scare people. He just liked to share the thrill.
Yeah, the adrenaline rush. They said he wasn't in it for the money. Friends and family members say multiple times in that documentary. They're adamant that he was simply interested in sharing his love of art with the masses. But figures in the background, the documentary implies, had a more capitalist motivation. The indisputable villains of the film are Annette and Walt Kowalski. The latter was a former CIA agent. That is interesting. They didn't mention that, I don't think.
They did.
Did they?
It was just a passing thing, and then they never brought it up again. They talked about it when they talked about the phone tapping.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Every time I see the Kowalskis, I just think koala bear.
Yeah.
The Kowalskis, the film argues, created the Bob Ross brand. Do we want to... we'll get into it more. I'll let you go.
I was going to say, I did like to see that so many people that they talked about were like, he could be a flirt, and he was kind of ornery sometimes to like get the crew like relaxed a bit. But like he was, for the most part, he was just that what you saw on TV, that was him.
Yeah. So I feel like the film did a really good job of portraying... I feel like the term womanizer is really loaded.
Yeah.
Because it has such severe connotations now.
Yeah.
Because it comes with the idea that you're... Not only are you engaged with multiple partners, but it also implies a form of abuse or manipulation of some sort. And I feel like the documentary did a really good job of walking the line of showing that he was human and he did have relationships with a lot of people, but it really, unless things come out later, it really showed that there weren't things done in malice, or that he wasn't like shitty to people either.
Yeah, and he said like with a lot of people, it doesn't even seem like a lot of people.
Right.
It was just there's more to it, but they paint him to be human, right. not a monster that behind the camera, which I mean that makes sense.
And a mostly honest human. It seemed like most of the things he did, he was pretty honest about too. I don't know.
So The Joy of Painting premiered in 1983, and PBS stations across the country quickly picked it up, rocketing Ross to television stardom. The brand of Bob Ross was born. Talent is a pursued interest, Ross says in one episode. Anything that you're willing to practice, you can do. Mm-hmm. The show made painting seem more accessible to everyone. In one heartwarming anecdote, Ross recalls meeting a colorblind man who could only see shades of gray. In response, on an episode, Ross painted a snowy scene in grays and whites. He was emphatic that anyone can paint.
It's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, that's such a cool thing to do. Like, he didn't have to do that and go out of his way to, make an episode like that. But just to demonstrate that it can be done, just impressive.
Yeah, man. I can't imagine how different my life would be colorblind. And we were talking about on our last freestyle, I think more and more like about body mod stuff I'm looking into. And I think one of the first things I'm going to do is the LASIK, to have some eye surgery.
Hell yeah, man. Do it.
Fucking awesome.
I was thinking about that actually as you said it. Like one of the things that make you cry, the things that are like catch all, like it's going to get you every time. There's like happy family moments, or like for me, the videos where someone puts on, like they give like the colorblind glasses to someone and like their response of seeing color for the first time in their life. Like that's fucking wild to me. That usually gets me, 'cause it's like the vision thing is so important.
Yeah. We want to, my brother John, who does our intro outro music, he's colorblind, and we want to do that for one of these Christmases.
Fuck yeah, man.
I've been joking with them for years about it, that because they don't, specific kinds work for different types of color blindness, and it's more complicated than I thought. But I keep joking with them that he's going to put on the glasses and see my art and be like, oh no.
Oh, but no.
Yeah, I was taking a risk. So, as we said earlier, in 1995, Ross died from complications of lymphoma. He was 52, but Ross's story does not end there. In fact, his death arrives about halfway through the documentary. If Bob dies, the Kowalski's business dies, one commentator says, and the rest of his story lifts off from there. The documentary suggests that the Kowalskis attempted to get Ross to sign the rights to his name and image over to them on his deathbed. Steve Ross said they called daily in an attempt to get Ross to agree, but he refused. According to the film, Bob married a nurse he had known for a few months in an attempt to stave off the Kowalskis. It was set up where they had some sort of a vote system, and Bob was so adamant that he wanted the rights of his life's work, his likeness, the business, to go to his son Steve, that he even married this nurse so he could get an extra vote on the board of the company or whatever. Steve Ross said the Kowalskis did not show up to their father's funeral. According to his son, Ross had an affair with his business partner. This is the big, probably the biggest controversy in the film.
Yeah.
The host style attracted an enthusiastic contingent of female fans, and the documentary alleges that Annette Kowalski was among them. So that is the wife of the Kowalskis.
Yeah.
And it is believed, including by Bob's son Steve, that Ross had an affair with her over years, it seemed like.
It also seemed like other people believed it, but they were unwilling to say it on camera for fear of getting sued.
Yes, and a couple people on camera mentioned they would likely be sued just for being in the documentary.
Yeah.
By Bob Ross Inc., who is, owned by the Kowalskis. I think one of their kids now operates the business.
Yeah, their daughter owns it now.
Yeah, but they're still alive, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time of the affair, Annette was still married to her husband, and Bob was still married to his wife, I believe.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of drama, and it affected Steve as a kid. And it just kind of seemed like I don't know, like shit happens. One of the guys who spoke about it was like, it was the 70s and there was all this free love stuff going on. And to call him, even in this article we're reading, that calling him like a womanizer, it sounds like maybe there could have been other affairs, but it seemed like the primary focus of it was with one other person that seemed he loved.
Yeah, he worked really close with her. Like, I can understand how that comes to be.
It's not that it's good, but it's like very
you can understand how that investment of energy and affection gets put into that.
Yeah.
Rather than, there's no mention of in the documentary of like him being with other people, but like obviously they're interested. It would be harder to, say that like to build up reasoning of why he would do that with, randos, when it makes a lot more sense that, he would take that risk on somebody that he works closely with.
Yeah, because it would have been his wife and his business partner who he loved to some extent or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. It almost is comforting in a sense though, because like all these people that have no dirt on them, no skeletons in their closet, like there's almost always something. Everyone has something.
Yeah.
And it almost always comes out. Like the one exception to that rule so far, at first it was Cosby. Right. We quickly saw how that went. And now it's like we have like Mr. Rogers is like the only innocent man left. And I still, I like Mr. Rogers, but I also see how there could be some skeletons on that guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, when you have somebody like Bob Ross, who it's like, yeah, he might have done some fucked up shit, but it's, I don't know, it's almost comforting compared to when you hear nothing or...
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. It probably sounds stupid.
No, I know what you mean, because like hearing like, oh, Bob Ross had an affair is like, all right, you know.
Who the fuck cares?
I mean, yeah, it's... I mean, obviously it sucks and it's dumb, but it's like, yeah, it's not the worst that a famous person can do. Like, I'm not going to hate Bob Ross now.
It's between him and his wife.
Yeah. And the opposite end of the spectrum would be, like, it's not the opposite end of the spectrum, but like, you know, like you said, Mr. Rogers, you know, if you had told me that like, oh, they found out like Mr. Rogers had been a serial killer, been like, I fucking knew it. Like it was too good to be true. There is no way that he didn't have a wild vice or some fucking deep extreme low to his extreme high.
I recently watched the Mr. Rogers documentary, and I actually think he's in the clear, but I think he was like a very tortured soul.
I can see that.
I think that's kind of how he went, but he's a perfect example of somebody that appears to be like have some darkness to him.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's after he dies, and, you know, they're covering up all of these secrets and shit. And his son, there was his son, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, they wanted people, I think, to believe he was still alive. And, you know, because that's their business, you know, they're making money off of products with his face on it and his image and his legacy. So of course they're going to downplay the funeral.
Apparently it was like 14 people knew about the funeral, and like Bob's closest people, many of them weren't invited. Right. And the public didn't find out. I think it was like a month later.
Yeah.
In like a shitty newspaper thing.
Yeah, a little obituary that said, Bob Ross, a painter on TV.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah,
just
like,
a painter on TV. Like, what the fuck?
Bobby Rose.
Yeah, the one.
Give him the credit. Bad boy Bobby. So, meanwhile, although he had died, Ross's image began taking off overseas. But trouble brewed at Bob Ross Inc., which was, again, it's owned by the Kowalskis still. The teachers who trained to become certified Ross instructors had to sign lengthy contracts stipulating that they could not promote other artists and could only use Bob Ross Inc. projects. The film says the only person qualified to certify a Ross painting is, and you can probably guess, Annette Kowalski. It remains very difficult to identify a real Ross painting from copy abuse because, as Ross said, anyone can paint, especially in his easily accessible alla prima style.
And if you're not super familiar, to anyone who's listening, being the person, like the specialist who certifies a specific artist painting is extremely important, because legally no one else has the professional expertise to make that claim.
Right.
So she is able to gatekeep what is or isn't a Bob Ross original. And there's some people who say that lots of paintings not painted by Bob have been released to the public or sold, and that people were forging the signature. And who knows if that's true or not, but people have made those claims. But she's the only one who can control these paintings of his that are trickling out slowly over the years so they retain value.
Right. It's absolutely fucked up.
Yeah.
It's
anytime there's a contract that keeps an artist from owning their work, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like even like Facebook, Instagram terms of service, like they own whatever you put up, like all that shit. Or like if you're a freelance designer and you sell your work to someone, and it's garbage. Anytime I do like a private freelance cover, whatever. I sell the rights to use things, but there's no way ever I could give somebody the rights to an original.
Right.
No fucking way.
The even the teachers that were doing the classes, there's a story in the documentary about one of them being kicked out in like the middle of one of her classes because she had mentioned wanting to go to a different artist's workshop to learn from them, and they were like, "You have to pack up your things and leave right now."
I said, "Don't talk to anyone.
Yeah, don't say anything to anyone. Just grab all your things and leave."
Get the fuck out of here.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Meanwhile, they mentioned in the documentary that even Bob Ross would go on and say, I'm trying to remember the name of that couple now. There's a different couple. They painted the flowers.
Yeah, the flowers. I can't remember their name either. But
actually, I remember watching some of those too. I just wasn't as interested in them when I was young. But
they were very talented.
Yeah. But they were... He would say, I do, mountains and trees and stuff, but if you want to learn how to paint flowers, go watch their program, because they also had a painting show. So Steve Ross is adamant that they believe that the Kowalskis believe that they are the full owners of the name Ross. And a year after Bob Ross' death, Bob Ross Inc. sued the painter's third wife and his half-brother for objects and paintings Ross had used and created. It's later revealed that the half-brother, purportedly against Bob Ross's wishes, had signed all rights over to Bob Ross Inc. His son even said they literally wanted to steal his dad's name, and they did.
This is where it gets kind of crazy, because Steve, his story is that he was cleaning out some old stuff in an attic or storage or whatever, and he found this contract that his uncle hid from him that sold the rights to the Kowalskis.
Right.
And later we'll get into it. We're also, because a lot of this in the documentary is just Steve's word or other people around Bob, and to me, I am very inclined to believe them, but we also will present the rebuttals of Bob Ross Inc. because they very much disagree with some of these statements.
Right.
They actually said they rebutted the documentary's allegations, calling it inaccurate and heavily slanted in a statement to Vanity Fair. I did not realize the next sentence was going to start the rebuttal. While the producers of the Netflix film did contact Bob Ross Inc. twice in late August and October of 2020, each request arrived with a confounding lack of transparency. The company said in a statement, "At no time did they pose specific questions to Bob Ross Inc. or ask for any form of rebuttal to specific assertions that they had decided to include in the film. Nor was it stated that they had a distribution deal with Netflix." I think that's probably true, because a lot of times these films, like these modern documentaries, especially with Netflix, it is a bit of a gotcha.
Yeah.
But that rebuttal is pretty weak too.
Yeah.
Because they're not saying any of it was untrue.
Right, exactly.
They're just like, hey, you didn't tell us you were going to do that.
Yeah. And I feel like there's also, isn't there a thing with like, when things go on Netflix, it's not necessarily that it's a made by Netflix. It's just like they make it and then Netflix is willing to buy it from them.
Yeah, I think most of the time they're considered producers, because they're just like funding things sometimes before, but often after.
Yeah.
Like Trailer Park Boys, it'll say a Netflix original on it, even though Netflix didn't actively produce those early seasons. They bought the rights, produced some later seasons, but then they can get production credits on everything or whatever.
So,
Randy.
Fucking Randy. Fucking Bo Bandy. There's no... Every time I have a customer named Randy, I want to call him Bo Bandy.
Oh, dude, that's funny.
That's just a built-in thing in me now.
You should just do it one day.
I thought about it. I'm waiting for one that looks cool enough, like they're gonna know.
They gotta have a big enough gut for.
And then even if they know, if they haven't heard it 1,000 times,
What if they replied, Mr. Lane? You'd have a new best friend.
Enough with the fucking cheeseburgers, Randy.
We'd have our third person on the podcast.
I'd have to invite him on. God damn it. Though he painted on television for less than 2 decades, the Ross brand persists fiercely today. You can purchase Bob Ross toasters, Ross Monopoly games, devotional prayer candles, which I want. I'll have to make my own so I don't give my money to Bob Ross Inc. I mean, we'll look into it.
A lot of, yeah.
But I can print that shit and make it. His art and image are inextricable from their status as commodities. Bob Ross.
I always like the Chia Pet one.
Oh, yeah, the Chia Pet was cool.
And it grows his afro. That's always cool.
Bob Ross' Happy Accidents, Betrayal and Greed succeeds as an homage to Ross and the world he created for millions of viewers each week. But like the many items one can purchase in his likeness, the film risks commodifying Ross as it honors him. At the end of the day, the film sometimes feels like another opportunity to jump on the Ross bandwagon, which doesn't seem like a happy accident.
Damn.
So I get what they're saying. I don't think that the film risks commodifying Ross. I mean,
The film doesn't.
But I do understand that maybe, more people getting into Bob Ross is going to fuel them, like I just, showed interest in a fucking prayer candle, to go buy Bob Ross shit, which is, going to put more money in the hands of the Kowalskis.
Yeah, we gave those koalas enough money.
God damn it, Koala's taking all our shit. It's the ongoing war between the Trashcats and the Koalas.
Now, here's kind of a philosophical question.
Mm-hmm.
How, not with Bob specifically, but with anybody famous, how long are we meant to honor or remember people? There's something where we kind of make I don't know, little demigods out of people, they're sacred. And it's we at the start of this episode joked about that with Bob, but it's also, there is something inherently weird or peculiar about putting a person on a pedestal like that, and in a sense not letting them fully rest in the consciousness of other people.
Agreed. There is a weird thing about, of course, I think it's based on the personal impact to each person. But it's, for me, we can stop talking about, Cobain, not stop talking about it, but okay, did he die before his time? Absolutely. Before he should have, because he was a young person, sure.
He was supposed to die, though.
I'm
100% with you. Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. It's it's the martyrdom thing. I don't know.
Well, it's you
said, the deifying people after their work. I get showing respect to them, but I feel like saying that is a hot take, because so many people are going to be like, but Kurt Cobain he did the Nirvana, and it's I get it. It's I like Nirvana for the most part.
Courtney killed him. I mean, it's sued. But the higher you put people on a pedestal, even people that are deserving of it, MLK or shit, the higher you put people on a pedestal, I don't think it's bad, but there is more room for disappointment. Right. And I think we've seen that a lot lately with people that were highly regarded. Later, the human sides of them come out. Yeah. And it's every time people act like they're so fucking surprised. I don't know. It's I don't know what the appropriate
They took shits too.
They put their pants on one leg at a time.
Oh, God,
they just live, laugh, loved like the rest of us.
Damn right. You gotta laugh to hide the crying. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So we're going to get towards our conclusion here. This is sourced from a Vanity Fair article by Anthony Bresnison. Leading up to the documentary's release, Bob's son Steve commented, "I've been wanting to get this story out for all these years." He tells the filmmakers, "What they did was shameful, and people should know that." Steve Ross asserts that not only was he wrongfully denied control of his late father's image, but that Bob Ross Inc. has cheapened his dad's legacy. "I believe the film will open people's eyes to the exploitation of artists around the world."
Now, I do feel strongly that it's his son. His son should absolutely have some control of his image, even if it's not like he has complete control because there's a company, whatever.
Right.
He should be able to make decisions, to use his dad's image for his own personal gain.
Yes, especially when his father fought so hard to legitimately make sure his son would have full control.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know if the stuff about the half brother, whatever, Steve's uncle, is necessarily true about it being stolen from Bob and from Steve, but we know for sure that Bob's intentions were for his son to inherit his likeness or fortune or company, or to have some control over that, and he fought very hard for that to happen. And it hit to this day, Steve still has no rights to any of it.
Yeah. He was scared to release his own line of brushes and products as Steve Ross art stuff because he figured they were going to sue him because of the name Ross.
And we didn't even mention Steve in and of himself was a very talented painter who was often on the show with Bob, and Bob was priming Steve to take over the show for him. And he did a bunch of episodes with him and did solo episodes and
the workshops.
Yeah. And Bob later said, apparently to his son at some point, he said, when you were around, I always painted shittier just so you looked a little bit better.
Yeah. To make it easier for you to, fill my shoes.
Yeah. And he was a very talented painter. I think he apparently at the age he was at, he really didn't want to take it over, but he was a part of it. And Bob wanted his son to have control over it.
Yeah. Since the film's release, fans have been going crazy rallying against Bob Ross Inc., condemning the company for the theft of Bob's image from his own son, and people are now even boycotting the Bob Ross products. In its new remarks, the company noted that it had reached a mediated settlement in 2019 with Steve Ross after a lawsuit he filed in 2017 was dismissed by a judge, and that the documentary was made in bad faith and dishonestly slanted against their business.
Now, that would be a game changer.
Yeah.
That would be very discrediting to this documentary and really make Steve out to be a liar.
Yeah.
But currently there's no evidence of this. This is just what the company claimed to have happened.
Right.
And even in the same statement, what was interesting is they said they had not heard from Steve in 20 years since shortly after Bob's death. And then in the same release, they also said that Steve had sued them in 2017 and the case was dismissed by a judge, but they reached a mediated settlement. Yeah. It's hard to know what to believe with that, but Steve and the people close to him do not believe there has ever been a settlement.
Yeah.
Or Steve says there isn't, but the Bob Ross Inc. says there was, and I don't know. I feel like that's something there should be proof of somewhere.
Yeah.
It'll come out one way or another.
Yeah.
But I tend to believe the son.
I do too.
But I also could see maybe it was like one of those things where they did reach a settlement because let's say the Kowalskis had the legal aspects, they had their butt covered, and there really wasn't a good case for Steve to win this because the uncle fucked him over or whatever happened, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he did press a suit and he had weak evidence, even though Bob wanted it to go to Steve. So maybe he did press the suit and was forced to settle for like nothing.
Yeah.
They could have settled with him for $100,000, and maybe he doesn't want to say he was willing to settle for something.
But $100,000 is $100,000.
Right. And if once you settle on it, it's really hard to press another suit.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is all hypothetical, but if he accepted any amount of money from them that was much lower than he would have wanted, that would have been out of desperation.
Exactly.
And I could see him not being willing to say he did that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who the fuck knows?
Fucking shit.
Yeah, but Bob's work and impact to people across the world is much more valuable than money. His son Steve later said, "Once I started to paint again, I realized I can take these emotions that I have and turn them into something. The Kowalskis made millions of dollars, I would say, from exploiting his name and image, but he brought so much happiness to people, and that's what's important."
Was somewhat true.
Yeah, I do think
it is important that of what he did and to remember his legacy of that. But to know that he definitely wanted his son to be involved with the aftermath of it, and he wasn't. That's still fucked.
Yeah, I don't really believe in forgiving or forgetting.
Yeah.
but they did show a bit. They showed very small glimpses of it, but I think the documentary led on that Steve has been a bit troubled since his father's death, but he really did seem genuine that since he had recently started painting and it seemed like he had gotten to a better place, and that both the documentary and whatever was going on between him and the Kowalskis really wasn't focused on the money. I'm sure the money's a big factor, but it really seemed like he, if anything, just cared about how his dad would be remembered.
Right.
I think that came across.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I think there's so much about that, where Bob was talking about, they're talking about the products, and like Bob didn't want to like have shitty paint. It's like, if we're going to sell paint with my name on it, it's got to be good paint.
Right.
It's got to be the stuff that I use, because, I don't want, people buying garbage and then that sullies my name.
That would be a grift.
Yeah. And
be bullshit.
And, the Kowalskis were adamant about trying to make, they're trying to make money. So they're trying to get cheaper products, and
they wanted the cheapest
they fucking
powder paint possible.
Right.
Yeah. Got rocks in it and shit.
Mix it in bulk in the Home Depot bucket in the back.
Right. That was always the funnest, making like, alternative paints, like out of fruit and stuff like that.
I never got to do that.
I did that kind of stuff a lot with the whole liquid. I mean, I used blood a lot, but I would like squish up strawberries and spit them out and
baby burn it onto the canvas.
Hell yeah. Is there anything specific you want to say before we maybe just open up, kind of look at a couple different aspects of it?
Let's get into it.
Okay. What do you think? Do you think the affairs tarnish his legacy? Like, by this documentary, because this is probably the most public those things have ever been addressed. Do you think it sullies his name at all, or?
No. And this is coming from me as like, cheating sucks. I think it's like, it's the lowest bar of like, it's not I stand by, like, it's not hard to not cheat.
That's not always true.
Oh.
I still think it's one of the shittiest things you can do.
Right. I don't think because I don't think it's hard to not be in a situation where, unless you're like not lucid, but even then before that point, there's like bars of being in a situation where you know that this could be an outcome. I mean, like, I've never been in a situation that turned into a passionate, something, whether it was a one night stand or otherwise, that didn't start off with at least some kind of a tell that like this person's interested in this, or this might happen.
I fully agree with you, but also you're like a good moral dude who's always lucid. If you're a piece of shit, that's
not been true for a lot of my life though. I've done some drugs. I've done illegal substances in my life.
I mean, it's one of they what do they say about guys like fuck, I'm gonna mess up.
Fuck anything that moves.
They're as loyal as the women around them let them be. It's something like that, where it's like there is something like in our human nature. Like I think we're responsible for it. I just think it can be easier for people to make mistakes than.
I mean, and that's while that's true, I think it's still a choice. You're still making an active choice in that moment. Yeah. Like I said, unless you're like completely, out of your head, in which case it's rape.
But if you're half out of your head,
there's
it's difficult.
There's gray scales. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not. What I'm saying is if you're making the choice to do this, that what you're doing.
You're betraying someone that loves you.
So that being said, like, it's a shitty thing to do, but does it make me like Bob Ross less? No.
It doesn't make me think less of people unless I intimately know their relationship. That's generally how I feel.
That's also mostly true.
Like even like Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky shit, like all that, the whole country treated her like fucking trash, first of all. But like what people do in private, and unless I know them well enough to judge them, I think it's between the two people. Even if my natural feeling is like, well, he might be a scumbag, or like that's fucked up.
Yeah, that I can agree with that way of going about it too. I know what it's like to be in both sides of the situation. I've never cheated on someone, but I've definitely been put in an easy enough position where, boy, I could get away with this and no one would ever know. And it's still so much, I don't know, I guess it's not easier, but like if you find yourself going that way, it's like, just you're not happy with the person you're with, break up with them.
Definitely.
Like, consider someone else for just 10 fucking minutes and before you make this decision that's obviously going to, hurt them for much, much longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think we'll have to go deeper on this on either like the philosophy of marriage or like some black pill incel shit to like.
Yeah, I'm qualified to talk about marriage and what that's like.
It's you love someone enough to make the stupidest decision of your life.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. But
you love someone so much, you have to get the government involved.
God, fucking sucks.
Yeah.
What were we saying?
So
I had a point with that. I lost it altogether.
I mean, do you think the affairs tarnish his legacy?
Not at all, in my opinion. I think to a minorly significant amount of people, it will.
Yeah.
especially like the older audience. But you know, I don't know. I just think
when you look at a spectrum of like what famous people did versus what their impact on the world was, you know, Bob Ross's impact on the world versus having an affair with a business partner, you know, when you compare it to like Michael Jackson or R. Kelly or like things that like,
yeah.
I mean, Michael Jackson is like, he put a major impact on a lot of people, maybe, but
100%.
But 100%. But R. Kelly,
100%. It's like they hurt so many people.
What I mean was also that, but what I meant was like the positive impact that like everyone like loved Michael Jackson.
To the world, it's probably a net positive.
Yeah. But like his outreach of what he, you know, his impact in that manner, and then when, you know, all of this shit starts, you know, coming out, that it's like, oh, it's like that was the fucking weird kid shit is way worse than an affair with a business partner.
A million times,
you know, or, you know, R. Kelly's, you know, how like shit. What, like 10-year rap career versus, you know, of mostly mediocre shit and some, you know, verses on other people's, right, you know, tracks. And then, you know, that weird shit he did. It's like, I don't know, it's all fucked up.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not even a comparison. Like Bob Ross is still fucking, yeah.
I think he came out of it pretty unscathed compared to a lot of people's documentaries or exposures later.
Yeah.
I also, maybe it's just because I'm a piece of shit person, but I have trouble judging people for a lot of things. I'm pretty flexible on a lot of things because I've done a lot of stupid things. Mm-hmm. It's hard to judge Bob. I'm like, he did pretty good.
Yeah. No, I don't judge Bob on that. Like I said, it's a business partner or something. You've worked really close with him. I can see that being put together. That's whatever.
It was all business, baby.
It's all business.
It's all good.
Get that wet dick in for business.
It's that wet on wet technique.
That wet on wet. God damn it. And it was cool to see that. I think it was fun to see that, like, oh, he would make like, you know, ornery jokes at, you know, the staff and like do goofy shit. Like, good. Obviously, like, look at the guy. He was a fucking playboy. He looked like, you know, he had the, you know, the open, you know, shirt shit going on with the beard, and he was.
Dude, I kept laughing about, like, I felt like every like season he'd lose one more button. A little more chest hair would be out.
They said he was like coming out of a hotel room or something, and there's like women like, you know, reaching at his shirt and like trying to grab his chest, and like I can see it. He was a fucking, you know, phenomenon. He was a celebrity.
Yeah.
And he did speak in a, you know, kind of a sexy, you know, try to like, you know, play to the audience.
Yeah.
That, you know, they admitted was mostly women.
Yeah, it was fun seeing like all the really fun I shouldn't have said fun twice. That was really shitty. All the fun sides of him with like how much he loved animals.
Yeah.
It was like he was just like a clown. He was like a little kid, like playing with these animals and the cars and stuff, and he was always fucking smiling in these photos. And he said
he'd go hunting with the camera.
Yes. He's like, this is, you know, how I go hunting. And even when he fished, he let the fish back. Yeah. It's like he really seemed like he was the same person on and off the camera.
That was the only way I have ever fished. I did fish with some people up here in Michigan, like to get fish to eat once before, but it's like when I grew up, that's how my dad and I fished. That's how he fishes and stuff. It's catch and release. The only time he ever, you know, takes the fish out is like if the hook goes too deep and he can't like get them back in, or, you know, then he knows they're about to die. It's like, yeah, I can't.
Did too. Yeah. I think my dad may have done it just because he didn't know how to gut a fish.
That's also fair.
But it's a thing. Like,
It's
I feel
work,
like
man. It kind of sucks.
it is. I feel like in Cincinnati, like what good fish are you gonna get?
Oh God,
like,
yeah, no.
Like
And we did used to fish up in the river.
Yeah. You don't want to eat that fish. You're going to die in half an hour of mercury poisoning.
Get them 14-foot long river gars and shit.
I got a Cincinnati catfish.
It's got 3 eyes.
Your stomach hurts for a month.
You have the new coronavirus.
Came from the river.
God damn.
But watching his relationship with his son was really cool. He really was trying to do anything he could to set his son up for a better future.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the deal with his half brother was, the uncle who may or may not have fucked the son out of the estate. But imagine if Bob would have known that would have happened, allegedly.
Yeah.
Like, it's so shitty.
Yeah, fucking, it's really, you know what the documentary never discussed. Apparently he had another kid, like before he went to the military. And they mentioned it for a second and then never went back to it. He kind of like raised him a little bit and then I guess it wasn't close or connected to him. Or the
Drop
mom
that
again.
bomb right at the end.
Oh yeah, well, it's just something I just remembered because they only mentioned it for a minute. And I do remember in the Wikipedia reading that like he had another son from the first marriage or whatever, and they didn't stay close.
Yeah,
that one he wasn't born to be a painter. He wasn't a Ross.
I feel like in general, like parents leaving their kids kind of thing is something it's a very worthwhile thing to judge a person for.
Yeah.
But the tricky part is you never know why.
Yeah.
Like there are
in
so
his
many
situation.
reasons.
Yeah. In his situation, he was like already going to the military.
Yeah. And you never know what the mother wanted. That's you can't like make a snap judgment on those things.
Yeah.
It's so complicated.
Yeah, they had her in the documentary. I think the very beginning, they were like, right before he was about to take off, I was pregnant. And then
That totally went over my head.
Yeah, they never went back to her.
Any other big bombs you want to drop?
Oh, yeah. Let me talk about this other wild shit he did. Well, the question is, is Bob Ross the greatest painter of all time? And of course he is. And
I'd say for like a modern paint, not like the most talented painter, but he's one of the. He's not the greatest, but he's one of the greats.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the most prolific. Easily, this is an icon of the painting world. Any painter that hates on him, this jealous.
Yeah,
there's definitely talent and, an understanding of technique that he had that is undeniable.
Now, how can you hate on such a, I don't know, just such a positive, gentle, like, voice that was in the world when there's just so much, like, clearly ugly shit, Hey, it was just refreshing.
Jealousy's a hell of a drug.
Oof.
Is that, you got anything else before we get the fuck on out of here?
I think we sucked Bob's dick off long enough.
All right, that's fair. Go find something else to do. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and thank you to
my card unblocked.
You heard it here first, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Thanks, John. He's working on some Trash Wave right now.
Ooh, Trash Wave. I haven't heard of that one yet. Is he inventing the style, or is that already a thing?
It's a whole thing. It's almost like a noise offshoot of Witch House.
Jesus Christ.
It's actually a really cool vibe, but the genre names are so
wild. Make sure to check out the show page at Trashcats Trashcast on Instagram for news and art from the show. You can check out the Facebook for the memes.
Yep, that's about all that's on the Facebook. Yeah. If you're bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZICX. Special shout outs to our artists mentioned in the episode, of course, Bob Ross. Thank you, Bob. And I don't even have to scroll up for these motherfuckers. I organized it ahead of time.
You did good, bud. It's only taken 40 episodes. You get it.
Only 40 episodes. Shouts out to Herman Herzog and Randy Ortiz. We'll be sharing their art as well as links on the Instagram and Facebook. And special thanks to Stenchman. This dude's cool as fuck. I used to listen to this song all the time. It's just really chill and pretty, so I'm excited for us to play that here in a sec.
Oh, I forgot I also have a dishonorable this week.
Run it.
Yeah, fuck Eric Clapton.
What did he do?
He released a fucking anti-vax masker protest song.
Oh, nice. Oh, dude, fuck him.
It's not even a good song.
You remember, did you watch The Wire?
No.
Omar from The Wire died.
Oh, bummer.
I normally don't give a fuck about any celebrity stuff, but that character was genuinely whatever. Sorry, Omar. Sending you good vibes.
Yeah,
I had the same shotgun.
Fuck the death of Omar. Make sure to tune in next week for our episode on To Be Decided. It's a philosophy episode, right?
Yeah, we got some fun ideas to play with.
Yeah, that's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash. And now, Free Will by Stenchman.
That was good.
Thank you, sir.
In a way, in our contemporary worldview, it's easy to think that science has come to take the place of God. But some philosophical problems remain as troubling as ever. Take the problem of free will. This problem's been around for a long time, since before Aristotle, in 350 BC. St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, these guys all worrying about how we can be free if God already knows in advance everything you're going to do. Nowadays, we know that the world operates according to some fundamental physical laws. And these laws govern the behavior of every object in the world. Now, these laws, because they're so trustworthy, they enable incredible technological achievements. But look at yourself, we're just physical systems too, right? We're just complex arrangements of carbon molecules, we're mostly water. And our behavior isn't going to be an exception to these basic physical laws. So it starts to look like whether it's God setting things up in advance and knowing everything you're going to do, or whether it's his basic physical laws governing everything, there's not a lot of room left for